Welcome back to The Hook on Woodward Sports Network. Tom Mazawey, Pilar Lastra, Darren McCarty in the house. And, of course, with Lions-centric today as the first day of the Dan Campbell era has officially started at Allen Park. Not with double sessions, not with working out with all the equipment on. Taking a break after the first practice and then a little walkthrough in the afternoon. And Mike O'Hara, this is his 45th time that this man has been at a Lions training camp, and we bring him on, the Dean.
Congratulations.
What's up, Mo?
45 years.
Happy birthday, I guess. Torture birthday, maybe.
It's great to do 45 years of anything, I suppose, but who knows? Look, I'd like to tell you what it used to be like, but I can't remember back that far.
We had Lomas Brown on. He reminded us, and as we all know, Mo, it was, you get 16 practices now with equipment on, and back then he said we did 16 practices in the first week with in the dead heat.
I think everybody knows what the Oklahoma drill is, but it's an offensive lineman against a defensive lineman and a running back, and you'll snap the ball and you got to get to the guy, and that's the way they started the first practice, not the 10th practice or the 20th practice. And then they played full double sessions and full pads, and the second afternoon session would end about 20 minutes of a full 11-on-11 scrimmage. It was just a different game. Players actually looked forward to it. So did the fans, because they knew it was coming. You could hear the crowd start to buzz when first of all, Monty Clark would say, everybody up, and you could hear the crowd buzz, and then players clapping their hands, and then it was all-out war for 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, that's amazing. Hey,
it's fun to watch. It really was.
Mike, I want to ask you a little bit about...
Hey, get your phone first.
I want to ask you about this offensive line. The last article that I read that you had posted on DetroitLions.com, Ragnow continues to accumulate awards and recognition. There's a quote in there that I want to read that one of the scouts said about Ragnow's athleticism and his versatility. He said, he can run the whole line, great communicator, takes pressure off the quarterback, athletic enough to pull, can play guard if you need. Some centers can't do that. He's probably the most versatile center right now. So this is huge considering we have a new quarterback. Ragnow just signed that huge deal. There's a lot of pressure on the offensive line. Do you think that they're really going to be as a real deal as what is being expected of them?
Oh, I think so. No, I don't know exactly what level, but yeah, I think it's really one of the top 5 or 6 offensive line in the National Football League. Just one thing, when that scout said about Frank Ragnow, he can run the whole line. That means he knows every player from left guard, left tackle, center, right guard, right tackle. He can run the whole thing. And, when you're making adjustments and the defensive line is throwing things at you, you make these adjustments. You've got to do it, like that. That's to keep the quarterback alive, open openings for the running backs and all that. You've got to be smart, you've got to be strong, you've got to be tough, and you've got to be athletic. And Frank's got all of that and more.
Hey, Mike, talking to Mike O'Hara, obviously the Dean here on The Hook. And Dan Campbell came out with his 4 rules, which I think I love. They're simple, and they're easy for a player to buy into. Don't be late, keep your weight in check, don't disrespect your teammates, and don't disrespect the game. What did you make of that when you saw that come out? Because to me, I think it sets the precedence of what the culture that he wants to have there, and it's of the work ethic and being accountable.
Darren, and you can probably speak to this more than us, you can overload your players to the point where they're not going to remember anything, let alone the small details. And I think that, I don't know if 4 is the perfect number, but it sounded perfect today in the way he delivered it, too. And there was no explanation of each one, because I think they're all self-explanatory. And watch your weight. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's going to be able to watch their weight. You've got to try, though. But I think all of that stuff was pretty simple. Respect the game, obviously. That speaks for itself, too. So I thought it was, as most things that Dan Campbell laid out, it was simple, it was easy, and I think there's nothing you can say about it that seems wrong. It seems dead on to me.
You know what I love, and I take this term from our big fella in Chad Johnson, but he kindergartened it for everybody coming in. Just like you said, dumbed it down and just said, this is what we're going to build off. And I think you, Mo, in saying that, he pretty much, they're self-explanatory, but are maybe sometimes overlooked with the over information that guys are trying to give to you as coaches. And speaking of the coaches, how important or the impact, because what we heard from quotes from Michael Brockers and stuff, is that the coaches who are former players are really involved and the atmosphere was really hyped up. What was atmosphere-wise did you see? Because you've seen a lot of, like that, you can remember a lot of them, but as far as today?
Well, let's keep in mind one thing. They want the players to survive and come back to practice another day. This isn't the Super Bowl. It's not a regular season game. It's not even it's not even a preseason game. But what it is this staff is competitive. You can see that when they're running drills, offense against defense. The offense wants to beat the defense, and that's Anthony Lynn, the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, and their position coaches. They want to win those matchups. And I think any level of competition that you establish is good as long as it doesn't get out of hand. And I think that's one of the things with the assistant coaches. I think there are 8 of them who have NFL experience as players. As I've heard numerous players say, they've been there. They know what it's like to be in those trenches. They know what it's like to be in those situations. They know how players think. They know how they react. And I think that's a good thing. Now, also, to add to it, and I'm sure there are listeners out there who are going to say, well, wait a minute, you just can't put players out there and expect them to coach. These guys also have a strong coaching background, too. In other words, they went from the playing field to the meeting rooms to the field to be coaches. And I think their experience as players is an asset, but it's not their only asset. It's also the experience they've added to it as coaches. For example, Anthony Lynn's been a head coach of a couple of teams, coordinator and all that, so he's really got a terrific background, which I think helps him, and it also helps his assistant coaches. Excuse me, when I talk too much, I have to sneeze.
God bless you. Hey, take a drink of
Bless
water.
you.
Michael Hara joins us, DetroitLions.com. Mo, I wanted to ask you about your 45 years. You've been through a lot of coaches. I'll just guess a dozen coaches. I'm just going to throw that out there. But who was the toughest? I'm thinking it was Bobby Ross. And who was the least problematic to the players? I would think it might be Jim Caldwell.
Well, I think you're right about the first one, the toughest. Bobby was tough. Monty Clark back in this, from 78 to 84 was tough too. I mean, he was an offensive lineman on a National Football League, blocked for Jim Brown, all that. And really, I really liked Monty Clark. I thought he had the chance to be a really a great head coach. Never had a quarterback, and things just never completely worked out for him. The easiest. Jim Caldwell wasn't easy, but he really did change the culture of that entire building, not just the players, but the entire staff, the people who worked there. I mean, when he walked into that building, it was almost like somebody took a wand and touched, 220 Republic Drive out there at Allen Park and changed everything overnight. Just a tremendous human being, a really good coach, and really highly thought of around the National Football League. Players really wanted to go to work and play for them. But there have been some others, I think. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mo. Do you believe if they kept Gentleman Jim, it'd be a different situation right now?
Well, I've got to say that when they let him go with 2 straight 9-7 records, the knock on him, to me, and I think other people felt this way. Obviously, Bob Quinn felt this way because he fired him, and with the benediction of ownership, by the way. Mrs. Ford was fully on board with it. I just think that they'd gotten as far as they were going to get under him for whatever reason. And I wrote that, but I also wrote that unlike most of the coaches before him, he was one of the few, if not the only. Now, Jim Schmidt or Joe Schmidt going back, but that's a different.
Right.
We're talking about a different thing. He quit because he had a beef with the front office. But Jim Caldwell, unlike his predecessors, left the Detroit Lions in better shape than he inherited them. He really did. Look at the attitude, the talent, the way they played. I mean, they played hard. Now, he might have been a little easier on them in practice, but they got their work done. They really did, and he treated those men like men. And they loved him for that. Matter of fact, there was a player when it wasn't known if he was going to be back for his 4th year. I asked one of the players who had no reason one way or the other. He really wasn't a Caldwell supporter. I asked him, "Would you think a majority of the players want Caldwell back?" And he said no. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Not a majority, a vast majority.
Yeah.
He's a great coach to play for." I'll never forget that line.
Michael Hara joins us, DetroitLions.com. 22 years ago today, Mo, Barry Sanders faxed in his retirement. I remember I was telling the people here that we had Sports Wrap with Dickerson and Courtney that night, and we were calling players that were shocked. We had you on. You weren't
Was
as
not
surprised. You weren't as
Wasn't
surprised.
at all.
Tell us
I'll go
about
back
it.
to say there was a story going around, and I think it was John Clayton of ESPN had put out just a sentence about in Detroit things may not be great with Barry Sanders, and I knew to some degree that he was disappointed. I wouldn't say angry, but disappointed in the way things were going. Also, he's getting older. 10 years as a running back in the National Football League, who averaged 3,000 carries a year. That's an awful lot of. It's like 25 car collisions a week.
Yep.
He really thrown his body in there. So I called his father, William, in I think it was Wichita. That's where Mr. Sanders lived. And I called him up and I said, because I'd talked to him off and on. And I just said, Mr. Sanders, there's a story out there that Barry's not happy. You're as close to him as anybody, which is true. He was. He was a really strong father and a role model type father. I said, what do you think is going on? And I'll never forget these quotes. He's sick of them. He's sick of losing.
Wow.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's in that. The next, I wrote that for the Detroit News.
Of course.
Matter of fact, you and Dan Dickerson called me and asked me. I saw you at the ball game that night. They asked me if I'd go on Sports Wrap that night with you because they'd heard some buzz. And I said, honestly, guys, not tonight, because I had a good story for the Detroit News.
Of course you did.
And that was my priority.
Hey,
And I said, tomorrow I'll do anything. I'll say anything, talk about anything you want, but not tonight. And it was a hell of a story when it broke.
Sure was.
Well,
Sure
that's Maz's MO, right? He wants to break the story before you break it for your real job, right?
We broke it on Sports Wrap.
I get it though, but that explains. And Maz, Maz asked me earlier, do I remember breaking? No, but I remember reading Mike O'Hara's article in the Detroit News that next day. That's the first thing.
He's sick of losing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fred Human, who's now still working in Lansing.
East Lansing, yep.
We talked about it on the air, and he asked me what I thought was going to happen. I said, he's not going to report, at the very least, he's not going to report on time. I don't think he's going to play again. That's what happened. Now,
was it true that Bobby Ross reached out to him, wrote letters to him, and Barry would not answer him back?
I think both of I know that Bobby tried to contact him, but he wouldn't talk to anybody. He really wouldn't. He had just separated himself from the Detroit Lions management. Excuse me. I don't think that there were many players that he let into, that he really talked with on a frequent basis at that time. I think they were really. They may have said otherwise, but I think they were surprised at the time too. But yeah, and why wouldn't Bobby reach out to him?
Right.
We got a tremendous running back. We really have a pretty good football team, despite the year before, 1998. I think they were 5-11 or 6-10 because they had some injuries up front on the offensive line. They had problems at quarterback because of injuries to Charlie Batch. And so, Bobby, why wouldn't he? He was proactive. He wanted him back.
I remember the last game he played. It was in the blue pants. He sweated through them. It was against the Ravens. The Ravens weren't very good then, and I just remember that was the last time that we got to see him. And it's 22 years, man. Where the hell? I know all the old guys say that. Where the hell did the 22 years go? I just don't get it, man. And I'm happy you're still there, Mo. Happy 45th anniversary, and we look forward to reading you and talking to you. I'm proud of you. You got on the V-Mix. You look great.
Absolutely. How's the bass practice? How's the bass practice?
Just a second, guys. Tom, I'm glad I'm still here too, okay? I want that understood. You're not the only one.
We love you, Mo. Stay healthy, man.
Keep putting out those great articles. I really enjoy reading them.
Keep practicing that bass.
The things I do for Britain.
Yeah, I love it.
I'll see you, man. Keep on
talking.
talking.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com, and, of course, the dean of the Detroit News back in the day. Him and Kurt Sylvester, the two best in the business. They went to Free Press and the News. We always wanted to do a show together. We were going to call it the Freepin News Show. But we never wound up doing it, but
that's great.
It's all good.
So if you want to be like Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty, go to CoastPortland.com and get your Coast products today.